Machiavelli's Guide to Outsmarting the World. If I told you that the world doesn't reward goodness, would you believe me? If I said that the path to power is not paved with honesty, but with understanding, deep, strategic, and sometimes uncomfortable understanding, would you be willing to listen? This isn't about being ruthless. It's not about manipulation for the sake of domination. It's about recognizing the game we're already in. And if you don't know the rules of the game, you're being played by someone who does. Machiavelli didn't write The Prince to create villains. He wrote it to wake people up. He saw something most of us overlook, that the world is not a morality tale. It's a terrain, a constantly shifting battlefield of interests, perceptions, and power dynamics. And if you want to thrive, not just survive, you need to learn how to navigate it with eyes wide open. We all like to think we're good people, that if we keep our heads down, do what's right, and treat others well, everything will work out. But let's be brutally honest, has that always been your experience? Haven't you seen people who cut corners, who bend the truth, who charm their way into positions of influence succeed? Haven't you watched those who bite their tongue, play nice, and suppress their ambition get left behind? The harsh truth is that the world doesn't reward virtue on its own. It rewards virtue plus strategy, and strategy requires clarity, not wishful thinking. But that's where Machiavelli comes in.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more topics you love.
He understood that human beings are not purely rational. We're emotional, tribal, reactive creatures. We want to believe in ideals, but we live in systems of power. And those systems reward perception over truth, boldness over hesitation, and clarity over kindness. Machiavelli's genius wasn't in promoting evil, it was in exposing reality. He said, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." Not because fear is ideal, but because it's more predictable. Love is fickle, fear is focused. And if you're in a position where your survival depends on others, whether in politics, business, or life, you better understand how those others actually behave, and not how you wish they would. This is where most people get stuck. They confuse being strategic with being immoral. They think that if they plan, calculate, or anticipate, they're being manipulative. But that's not Machiavellianism. Or that's wisdom. Imagine you're sailing through a storm. Would you rather be guided by someone who tells you everything will be fine if we just stay kind, or someone who understands the wind, the waves, the weight of the ship, and the psychology of the crew? Strategy is not the enemy of goodness. It's the protection of it. Because without strategy, your goodness gets devoured by those who are willing to do what you're not. Let's ask something uncomfortable. How many times have you silenced your instincts because you didn't want to seem aggressive? How many opportunities have you missed because you were waiting for someone to give you permission? How many people have taken advantage of your kindness while you told yourself it was just bad luck? These aren't accidents. They're symptoms of a deeper misunderstanding that the world is fair by default. It's not. Fairness is a design, and if you don't help design it, you will suffer from the versions that others create in their favor. Machiavelli teaches us that we need to see people not as we hope they are, but as they are. This doesn't mean we stop loving, or trusting, or giving. It means we stop doing those things blindly. We do them with precision, with discernment. We give where it's safe to give. We trust where trust is earned. We love without surrendering our agency. That's how you outsmart the world, not by becoming cold, but by becoming awake. And being awake means paying attention. It means understanding that every social interaction is layered, that people say what they think you want to hear, not what they truly believe. That power is never just about authority, it's about perception. If people think you're weak, you are. If they perceive you as valuable, you become valuable. This doesn't mean faking your way through life, it means crafting who you are consciously, deliberately, strategically. So how do we apply this? How do we take Machiavelli's lens and actually use it to shape a life that is both powerful and principled? It starts by asking better questions. Not what should I do to be good, but what is the structure of this situation? Who has what leverage? What are the incentives? What am I not seeing? This is the shift from reaction to observation, from naivete to insight. You don't need to become a schemer. You need to become a student of human nature. Because when you understand people, you understand everything: politics, relationships, business, even yourself. And when you understand yourself, you stop being manipulated by others. That's the real power. Not dominance, but sovereignty. Not control over others, but clarity within yourself. And the first step toward that sovereignty is this: stop expecting the world to reward you for being good. Start rewarding yourself for being aware. Because awareness is the seed of strategy, and strategy is the bridge between who you are and what the world actually responds to. The masks we wear, how to use perception without losing yourself. Every one of us wears a mask. Not because we're fake, not because we're liars, but because we're human. We adjust, we adapt, we present different versions of ourselves to different people. The person you are around your family is not exactly the person you are at work. The version of you your friends see may be more relaxed, more candid, more raw. And that's not hypocrisy, it's social intelligence. But here's where things get dangerous: when we forget that we're wearing a mask. When the performance becomes the identity, we lose ourselves. Machiavelli warned us of this centuries ago, not directly, but through his relentless focus on perception. He knew that what people believe about you is often more important than what's true. And if you don't shape that belief consciously, someone else will do it for you. Let's be blunt. Most people are not evaluating you based on deep philosophical truths. They're not assessing your soul. They're scanning for signals. Signals of confidence, status, power, safety, relevance. Society runs on these signals. What you wear, how you speak, who you associate with, how quickly you respond to pressure, these are all cues people use to decide how to treat you. You can hate the game, but you're still in it. And if you don't learn how to play it with integrity, you'll end up performing for people who don't even know the real you. Machiavelli understood that a ruler must appear virtuous, not necessarily be virtuous. That's a bitter pill to swallow, especially if you've been taught that authenticity is everything. But let's think deeper. Is it more authentic to be entirely transparent in every moment, even if it costs you your influence, your safety, or your ability to create change? Or is it more authentic to protect your essence by choosing how and when to reveal it? Sometimes being strategic is the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for others. Because when you burn out trying to be real all the time, you become ineffective. And ineffective people can't help anyone. This doesn't mean lying. It means layering. It means showing different parts of yourself in different contexts. It means knowing who you're talking to, what they value, what they fear, and shaping your message accordingly. That's not deception, it's communication. But again, it must be anchored in truth. The danger arises when the mask becomes your identity, when you start believing the performance, when you lose touch with your core. That's when people become hollow, anxious, disconnected. They succeed outwardly, but they feel fake inside. Why? Because they traded clarity for applause. So how do we use perception without losing ourselves? We start by defining who we are in private. Before the world tells you who to be, you must decide what you stand for. What are your principles? What are your boundaries? What truth would you protect, even if it cost you everything? This is the foundation. Without it, every mask becomes a potential prison. But with it, every mask can become a tool, a means to navigate the world without surrendering your soul to it. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you wore a mask so long that you forgot to take it off? When was the last time you said yes just to be liked? When was the last time you smiled while dying inside? These aren't small betrayals. They're fractures, and enough of them will make you forget who you are. That's why Machiavellian insight must be paired with deep self-awareness. Because perception is power, but only if it's tethered to purpose. You don't need to show everyone everything. You just need to make sure that the parts you do show are chosen, not forced. That they serve your vision, not your insecurity. That they move you closer to impact, not deeper into performance. This is the paradox of power. The more you understand how masks work, the more free you become. Not because you abandon yourself, but because you protect yourself. Because you understand that in a world obsessed with appearance, knowing your truth is the ultimate rebellion. Machiavelli would say, let them underestimate you. Let them misunderstand you. Let them see what you want them to see. Because while they're reacting to the image, you're moving behind it. Quietly, precisely, intentionally. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. You need to be deliberate. That's how you win without shouting. That's how you influence without forcing. That's how you outsmart the world, by controlling the signal without corrupting the source. So yes, we wear masks, but we do not become them. We use them. And when the time is right, we take them off, not for everyone, but for those who've earned the right to see us. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. And wisdom is what Machiavelli offered, not to turn us into manipulators, but to make sure we're not manipulated by those who already understand the game better than we do. Power and the illusion of morality, why nice people finish trapped. There's a painful irony in the way society views morality. We're taught from the earliest age that being nice, agreeable, and self-sacrificing is the golden path to success and respect. That if we just treat people well, follow the rules, and keep our heads down, life will reward us. But how often has that actually been true? Look around, observe the world without the filters of what you've been told to see. Do the kindest people always rise? Do the most selfless always lead? Or is it often those who understand the limits of morality, those who know when to bend, when to hold, and when to walk away, who actually shape the outcomes? Machiavelli didn't say morality was useless. He said it was a tool, not a guarantee. And this distinction is everything. Morality, when used blindly, becomes a trap. It convinces you to stay silent when you should speak. It tells you to forgive when you should set a boundary. It urges you to stay in systems that exploit you under the illusion that your patience will be recognized. But here's the truth. Morality without power is ornamental. It looks good, it feels good, but it doesn't change the world. And worse, it often changes the very people who are most capable of doing good. When we look at history, we don't see a parade of saints who quietly ascended through virtue alone. We see visionaries who understood timing, who understood strategy, who understood that doing good often requires uncomfortable decisions. They knew that saying no to the wrong things is just as important as saying yes to the right ones. They weren't reckless, they weren't cruel, but they weren't naive. And that's the line we have to walk. Because the world is not moved by purity, it is moved by action. And action requires clarity, not just kindness. But let me ask you something that might sting. Have you ever stayed in a toxic situation because you didn't want to be mean? Have you ever given someone another chance, not because they deserved it, but because you didn't want to seem unforgiving? Have you ever sacrificed your well-being to maintain an image of being nice? If you have, you're not alone. That's the moral illusion at work. It whispers that your value comes from pleasing others, from being agreeable, from not rocking the boat. But Machiavelli would tell you, if you're always trying to be loved, you will eventually be used. Because not everyone values your virtue. Some people only value your vulnerability. This is why nice people often feel trapped. They live in a psychological prison built out of expectations. Expectations to be agreeable, humble, accommodating even when those traits are being weaponized against them. They keep giving, hoping that one day the world will notice. But the world is not watching for goodness. It's watching for leverage. And if you don't have any, if you've given away all your power in the name of being liked, you don't get to choose your fate. Others do. Machiavelli's guide to power isn't about abandoning morality, but it's about reclaiming it. It's about understanding that true morality must be chosen, not imposed. That being good is only meaningful if you had the option not to be. And that sometimes the most moral thing you can do is say no, walk away, enforce a boundary, refuse to play small. Because your dignity is not a gift you give away to prove you're a good person. It's a standard you uphold for yourself and for the world around you. So what do? We stop confusing goodness with passivity. We stop mistaking politeness for principle. And we start realizing that power isn't evil, it's essential. Because without power, your values have no vehicle, but your compassion has no reach, your vision has no teeth, or power doesn't corrupt, it reveals. And if you've done the inner work, if you've faced your shadow, if you've built your core strong, then power won't turn you into a tyrant. It will turn you into a force. The end game, how to win without selling your soul. So here we are at the edge of the game board, staring down the final question. Is it possible to win without becoming the very thing you despise? If power is necessary, if strategy is essential, if masks must be worn and perceptions managed, how do we emerge from this game with our soul intact? How do we play in a world where manipulation, leverage, and image often rule, and still look in the mirror without shame? This is the most profound Machiavellian dilemma, and it's one that too many people never stop to consider. They either sell their soul to get ahead, or they cling to their purity and get left behind. But what if there's a third path? A path where wisdom and integrity walk side by side, not compromising each other, but sharpening each other. Then to win without selling your soul, you must redefine what winning means. Most people live lives defined by someone else's scoreboard. They chase titles, money, status, followers external symbols of success without ever questioning if those things actually fulfill them. And in doing so, they become easy to manipulate. Because when your self-worth is tied to things outside yourself, you become a puppet to those who control them. That's how people lose themselves. Not in one grand decision, but in 1,000 small compromises made in pursuit of a prize they never truly chose. Machiavelli teaches us that power is inevitable, but it's how you wield it that defines your legacy. If you want to win without corruption, then the first rule is this: know your values before you're tested. Because the world will test you. It will offer shortcuts. It will dangle rewards for silence, compliance, and betrayal. And if you haven't already decided what you will and won't do, you'll rationalize anything in the moment. That's how people drift, not because they're evil, but because they're unanchored. You need an internal compass that's stronger than external temptation. But values alone aren't enough. You also need vision, a powerful, clear, and personal vision of what you're building. Because if you're not building something, you'll be absorbed into someone else's plan. Vision gives your strategy a soul. It connects your tactics to a purpose. It allows you to move through complex, high-stakes situations with clarity, because you know what you're working toward, not just what you're trying to avoid. And that's where true power lives, not in domination, but in direction. Still, the world will try to convince you that the only way to win is to become cold, indifferent, ruthless. But that's a lie. Ruthlessness is not strength, it's a symptom of weakness disguised as control. It's what people do when they've never done the inner work. When they've suppressed their humanity so deeply that they have nothing left to protect. Real strength is the ability to hold power and compassion, to walk into a room and shift the energy not through fear, but through presence, not through control, but through clarity. That's the rarest power of all, to be unshakable without being unkind. So what does this all lead to? It leads to the understanding that Machiavelli's guide was never about turning you into a monster. It was about preparing you for a world that doesn't play fair. A world where those who see clearly, act wisely, and stay grounded in purpose will always have the advantage, not because they dominate others, but because they refuse to be dominated by others. They become impossible to manipulate. They become immune to flattery, coercion, and fear. And in that immunity, they become free. Ask yourself, what would your life look like if you stopped apologizing for your intelligence? If you stopped hiding your strength to make others comfortable? If you stopped waiting for permission to be powerful? That's the Machiavellian endgame, not to conquer the world, but to no longer be conquered by it. To play the game with open eyes, strong hands, and a clear heart. To win not by becoming someone else, but by becoming fully yourself, at your highest level of awareness. You don't need to sell your soul to win. You just need to stop giving pieces of it away in exchange for approval. But the world doesn't need more people who play by the rules of the broken. It needs more people who understand those rules and choose to rewrite them. The game is real. The players are serious. The stakes are high. But so is your potential. And now you know how to play.